Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mount Zion podcast, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of No Longer Silent. I'm your host, Nevita Milton Riley. If you are joining us for the first time, it's great to have you. And if you've been with us since our previous episodes, then we appreciate your love and your support. My guest today is Kadian Williamson. She is a very good friend of mine. We belong to the same congregation for about 4.5 years. And I am honored to have her on here today on No Longer Silent, where she will be sharing one of her many, many testimonies of triumph. Kadian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, just to kickstart things before we get into the meat of the matter.
Okay. As I said before, my name is Kadian Williamson. I am a member of the Spanish Town Assembly of the Mount Zion Assemblies of Jamaica. I am married with one child. I originated from Orcharius, but through marriage, I migrated to Kingston and hence worshiping at the Spanish Town Assembly. I am a jovial person. I am upbeat. I am quite adventurous, but more so, I am very spiritual and I don't put anything above the work of the Lord.
Yes.
That is foremost in my life, the work of the Lord.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this story that you're going to be sharing with us today, I'm just going to ask you to just go ahead and dive into it. Just tell us, just share with us what you've been through, how it made you feel, and just how you were able to come out of that space.
Thank you. In 2019, about June, late June, my husband and I, we usually exercise in the mornings. Mm-hmm. So for a few mornings, I noticed that while like after exercising and I'm taking off my top, my breast felt a bit heavier and there was a little pain, my left breast. I was concerned, but I didn't take it as serious until like the following week when I felt a very huge lump on the left side of my left breast. That lump just came up overnight. That's like less than a week, a huge, I don't remember what the measurement was, but it was a very huge lump. And I mean, I got so worried because, once you feel a lump in your breast, the first thing you're going to think about as a woman is cancer.
Oh, yeah.
So, this very same day, I made an appointment to go and see my gynecologist. I went to him, but, he himself was quite shocked and he wasn't sure what it was. Mm-hmm. But what he said was that cancer, the size of the lump wasn't what a cancerous lump would normally be.
Okay.
So anyway, he sent me to do an ultrasound on the breast to determine what it was. First, when I went to do the ultrasound, they didn't find anything there. They said that it was inflammation. And so what the gynecologist had to prescribe was antibiotic. So that's all he could prescribe for an inflammation in the breast. That antibiotic was for 10 days. After the 10 days, the size of the lump didn't go down a bit. And the pain was still there. Everything was still there. So he referred me to a specialist at the same it was a private institution. So he referred me to a specialist in the same compound.
Right.
So by the time I got to see that specialist, some red spots came up on the breast. And they hurt. So when I got there, this doctor, he wasn't offering me much information. He was just talking about cutting, and he didn't say what he wanted to cut or why. And every time I kept, like, he did a biopsy and sent that to the lab. But every time I asked a question, he didn't give me any information. He just kept saying, you know, let's wait until the result came back. The biopsy that he did, he had to cut into the breast down a bit so he could get the tissue to send to the lab. Now, he cut 2 places. One of it healed up, but the other one would not heal. And you know, of course, at this time, he was thinking cancer, but he wasn't telling me.
Right.
So when the cut wasn't healing up, and I'm telling you that this doctor was expensive because it's a specialist. So every time I went to see him, I had to pay a lump sum, right? So then when I noticed that, you know, it wasn't healing up and he wasn't giving me any information, I decided that, you know, I had to go somewhere else. And I asked him for a referral, which he sent me to UWI Hospital.
That's the University of the West Indies in Jamaica.
Yes, thank you. So when I got there, by this time the breast was getting worse. The spots, you know, it was like when I remember, I will tell you. Okay. But the red spots came up more than all over now. There were a lot of them. So, and it was painful.
So what was going through your mind and your husband's mind? Like, what were you guys thinking at this point? How were you handling this situation?
At that time, all right, they always said, when you are sick, do not go to Google. Google will kill you faster than the sickness that you have.
That is true.
And there was the lump, and there was the red spots, and then I had, my breast began to look like orange peel.
Oh my God.
So when you Google those symptoms, all you are seeing is cancer.
Yeah.
To be specific, the very aggressive, what's it called? Inflammatory, I don't remember the exact name, but right. It's very aggressive, and based on how my breast was, that's the thought. I know that's what the doctor thought. And when I Googled the symptoms, especially with the orange peel looking breast, you know, it was cancer. I lost weight. I could not eat. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, and I cried a lot. You know, they say when the Lord bless you with children, children are a blessing.
Yes.
And every time I would hide away from my husband and cry, my son somehow always find himself in the room. And as soon as I start crying, that was him running out. Daddy, 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 mommy is crying again. Mommy is crying again. And I felt so upset because, you know, I just wanted to cry.
And to be by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it was very stressful. And the thing about me is that I don't talk. I will keep it. And because I was so fearful,
yeah,
you know, I didn't want to burden down Brian with it. And then, you know, so I was just crying by myself and trying to hide away and stuff. But, you know, one night I was here and Brian is like, I don't know if it was the Lord who touched him, but I was here and I cried. And he said, you know what, come, let's go to Sister Golding.
Yes.
Let's go to Sister Golding's house.
Yes.
That time, Leon was there, and they used to have the service, their night services, which ran late sometimes. Yes. So when we got to the house, it was like after 10. And I'm telling you that they prayed a prayer for me that night.
Before we go any further, just clarify for our listeners who is Sister Golden and who is Leon, because not everybody listening might know who they are. We know who they are. So just clarify for me, who is Sister Golden and who is Leon?
Certainly.
Right.
Sister Janet Golden from the Spanish Town Assembly. She is the wife of deceased Evangelist Golden, Robert Golden.
Right.
And Leon, is brother Leon Belvit, was at Elders. They came to Spanish Town and now is in the Stony Point Assembly.
Right.
So Brian brought me there that night. And it must have been the Lord that inspired him to take me there. And I'm telling you, they prayed a prayer for me that night, Sister Nevita.
Yeah.
That was the end of my fear. That was the end of the crying. That was the end of the worrying. The Lord did something that night when I got the prayer.
Yes.
But after that now, going to UE, by that time the breast was hurting like crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. I remember one night, in order for me to sleep, the same brother Leon Belvic sent me a recording of Evangelist Rohan Clark preaching. And in order for me to fall asleep that night, I listened to that preaching.
Yeah.
And it was what made me fall asleep.
Yeah.
Because the pain was so bad. And I remember one night the pain was so bad again. I called Sister Joan Cameron Wilson of the Grove Assembly, and she prayed for me that night, and I got to sleep again. But then I went to UE, and based on how bad it was, I was admitted. When I was admitted there for 1 week, that was in August. In about like the second week of August. And so remember, I am working, I have a job, and I have to be absent. During that time also, I had a miscarriage, which was very hard. Yeah. But then I understood why, the Lord knew that I couldn't have a child in the situation in which I was in.
Yeah.
So I was admitted to you for 1 week. They discharged me. They did not do anything. They gave me some antibiotic, and they gave me Cetamol as a painkiller to come home with. And when I was at the hospital, because I was getting painkillers through the IV line, good painkillers, I wasn't feeling the pain, but the breast was in the same condition. But by the time I came home the Thursday evening, and the medication that they were giving me weared off, no matter how much Cetamol I took, it could not help me with the pain that I was feeling. Right. I mean, the pain was so excruciating. All I could do is cry. And by the Saturday evening, I was back at UE again.
My God.
I was admitted again this time. They didn't say what it was that I had, but they were treating me, and I didn't ask any questions. And they decided that they were going to do a surgery. First of all, they sent me to do an ultrasound to see if they could draw the fluid from out of the breast. But when I did the ultrasound, the technician said that there was too much fluid in the breast and it was running all over the place, so they could not do that. It would not have taken out all the fluid. So they decided that they would have to do surgery. They did surgery the 1st of September, 2019. Praise God. The Lord took me in, Sister Nevita. I remember being very afraid.
Yeah.
But when they wheeled me to the theater and I got to the door, and the guy that received me from the others, he said the Lord positioned him at the door. And when he looked at me, he said, "Are you afraid?" And I laughed. And he said, "Don't be afraid. the Lord's got you. I didn't want to hear anything else.
That was it.
Good.
That was it.
I was good. This is not my first time doing surgery. I did surgery 2 times before. I did a C-section with my son, and I did a surgery before that. And so, but I was afraid. But the Lord set that man at the door, and the man said, don't worry yourself. God's got you.
Yes.
And the fear went. And I went into the surgery and I came out all right. Then now, having to go, I stayed a couple days after the surgery, and then I was sent home. But, while at home, I noticed that, the red spots, they kept coming back up. I think they call it fissures. Mm-hmm. But then I was so concerned because I was thinking to myself, why is it that they're coming back if I already did the surgery?
Right.
So out of curiosity, I said, I'm going back to the hospital to find out. But when I went to the emergency part, and, they did the registration process and everything. But it's like the devil had a woman there waiting for me that night. And that doctor that I saw, she said to me that this is cancer for sure.
Oh God.
This is, and it's that she just tear me apart. She was so certain, Sister Nelita. She said this is cancer for sure, and I shouldn't. I should try to seek outside help because sometimes the hospitals, they keep you, and then it becomes too late and it's spread all over. I was devastated because I'm saying, where this woman just come out of the blue, just come tell me this like that.
Yeah.
And so I asked her if she could give me a referral to somewhere. So she sent me to this doctor, Robert something, I don't remember his other name. Mm-hmm. He's an oncologist, a specialist. He's one of the best in Kingston. And when I went to see him, when I came home, I was so devastated. And I told my family, and, we were just all in shock because I'm saying, where is this coming from? But, we set up an appointment with the doctor. I went and I saw him. He gave me an appointment to go to this, what you call the persons who do the x-rays. Radiologist.
A radiologist, I think.
But she is the best in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So she is expensive. Very expensive.
Yeah.
I had to do a core biopsy on the breast. Okay. And that was over $100,000 just to do that alone. But before I made the appointment, but before I went to do that, I called a prayer meeting at my home.
Yes.
I invited some brethren to come and pray with me.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that the power of God came down in my home that night. Mm-hmm. So whatever was there would have gone by the time I went to do the yes. ultrasound. Anyway, I went and God was so good to me. The lady who did it, she was an Adventist. And so I got a Sabbath discount. even though I'm Church of God and she's Adventist, yeah. I got a Sabbath discount.
That is good.
And this woman, she did the biopsy, but then after she finished, she used her alcohol and anoint my body, and in the name of Jesus, in the yes. name of Jesus.
Yes.
Everywhere I went, the Lord presented himself.
Yes.
And
somebody was there.
It. Yes. So she did it. And, I had to wait a couple of days to get the result, which, the waiting period was quite crazy.
Yeah.
Because, the thoughts that I was thinking, and, I noticed my husband that he wasn't himself, and I knew that it was on him.
Right. Started to cool.
Yes. And even my son, it took a hold on him. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was in the hospital, he cried. Mm-hmm. My brain said he couldn't believe when he started to cry so badly. And, but God has been good. And when I went to pick up the result, it was a condition known as granulomatous mastitis. It's very rare, very rare. To the point when I was looking up on Google, it never came up in the history at all. Right. It never came up. So when she said it was granulomatous mastitis, I was like, what? But then when I brought the result, I gave God thanks. First of all, I gave God a mighty thanks.
Yes.
You know, by this, the breast was healing up. So, you know, I went back to the doctor and I gave him the result after I read it, of course. And he said to me that if he had placed a bet on it, he would have lost because he swore it was cancer.
Yeah.
He even showed it to me in his notes. He wrote it down that it was cancer. And I remember the first time I went to him, he was showing me some ladies at the front and he was saying to me, don't worry yourself, you're not alone. You know, all these women that I am treating are cancer patients. So when I went back, he said, if I had placed a bet on you, I would have lost. And he said, see, here's the notes. Look at my notes. I wrote it down that it's inflammatory breast cancer. But thanks be to God, the great God of heaven.
Yes.
That's not it. And when I was leaving there, I said, whatever you had planned or whatever your thought was, God's thoughts are far away from man's thoughts.
Yes.
And you know, we have to have faith in God. We have to have faith. It's not about just praying and living. We have to have faith that God is able. And he said to me that, you know, I should go home and drink a glass of red wine. But I had to say to him, that's not how I give thanks.
Oh, no.
That's not how I give thanks. I worship the God of heaven and I thank him for his goodness towards me. For he truly delivered me out of that situation. And after all of that, you know, I was going back and forth from the hospital from September right back until December. It was a long journey back to healing. It took a while and it was very hard. When I went to the hospital and they had to take off the bandages, it was hot. And to pour the thing on it, it burned. It was very hot. And a lot of times I had to cry. You know, and the ladies, they were always feeling sorry for me and, you know, trying to say hush and so on. But, you know, I made it through.
Yes.
But, you know, I was supposed to go back to work in October. But you see, Sister Nevita, sometimes the Lord speaks to us and we don't listen.
Yeah.
For some reason, it was just on me not to go back to the work. And, you know, but the morning when I was supposed to go back, I had spoken with my employer before. I laid it out on the table to her, you know, that I'm going to come back. But that very day that I should return, I would have to be late since I had to go to the hospital for a dressing. And I made sure to tell her that 3 times per week, I have to do a dressing, right? Now, my employer is a female, is a woman. So you would expect that a woman would understand the issues that another woman is facing, right? When the day that I was to return to work, I'm telling you, Sister Nevita, that, you know, when I called her in the morning and reminded her that I'm to return today, but I'm going to the hospital first, she was giving me attitude on the phone. And, you know, after the conversation, I called my husband and I said, you know, something is up this lady's sleeve because now that I'm talking to her, she's behaving a type of way on the phone that I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then it's like the Lord I called same sister Janet Golden, and I said, you know, I feel like the Lord doesn't want me to go to work, to go back to that place. Anyway, I went to the hospital, got my breast dressed. And I'm telling you that while at the hospital, I started a different type of sickness took me that morning. I mean, that was confirmation. But sometimes we are too stubborn
To listen.
and we push
Right.
through, even though the Lord is trying to save us from something.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I got treated for that other illness, and I said, all right, then it was about 12 o'clock. I'm just going to stop by the workplace. And Sister Navita, when I got there, you know, my boss's face wasn't very pleasant.
Right.
But I went into her office and I sat down and I was talking to her. She had my last pay ready, and she informed me that she would be dismissing me that
She was
day.
dismissing you.
I said, oh, no problem, that's fine. Just let me have the letter.
Right.
Just let me have the letter that you're dismissing me. She didn't prepare one, and she was upset that I even asked for one. So I said, that's fine. Just, you know, give me a letter and I'll walk away. That's fine. You know, I didn't feel any way.
Mhm.
And I even testified that, you know, sometimes we are in a job that God have to dig us out of
Yes.
in order for us to go on to the next phase of his plan.
Yes.
But he planned, we even as much as we want to do something, the Lord is the one who is in control of our lives. And if he doesn't want us to do something, then he will take us out of it.
Absolutely. He will.
And that day they dismissed me, feeling good actually. Because to tell you the truth, I was in no way ready to go back to work. My breast wasn't near healing up, and the Lord knew that I could not manage the job, you know. So when I went home and I rested, but while I was home, you know, the Lord, over the years, the Lord has, you know, sometimes the Lord really grab you by your hand and put you into a direction.
Yes.
I was never interested in sewing. I was never interested in cutting clothes, anything fashion. I was never interested in that. I always wanted to be a social worker or a guidance counselor. But I went for a job at a factory once to do a receptionist work. And I got caught up in the factory life. I was taught how to cut. I was taught how to sew. I was taught how to make patterns.
Yeah.
And so the first time in a factory, I started to work as a swimsuit designer.
Mhm.
Out of nowhere, the talent just came. And I was like one of the top swimsuit designers in Ochi. Everybody was coming to polka dots. And when I left there, I had no intention of going back into a factory. And I was looking work all over the place, looking to a receptionist, secretary, anything. But the Lord dropped me right back into an next factory in Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always working with females who don't treat me very well. And when I left that other job in Kingston, I had no intention of going back into another factory work. But somehow the Lord dropped me back into that one where I got fired when I was sick.
It was redirected.
But you know, during that time, I learned, Sister Navita, I learned everything. I learned how to do various things, you know, various type of things. I learned to make pattern, and I learned how to use the cutting machine, the electric one, so I could purchase one for myself. I learned so much so that I could do my own thing. And you know, I had to give God that, because I said, God, from the beginning, you had a plan for my life that I did not see.
Yes.
I did not see it at all, and I even wanted to reject it. But that's the plan you had, and you insisted, and you brought me that way. And with all that I learned, Sister Navita, I have never been to fashion school. I have never been to any form of formal training when it comes on to sewing or pattern making, cutting, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord, when I was homesick, you know, the idea came to me that, first of all, when I first bought my machine, the Lord said to me that I should buy a machine and sew. And the confirmation came from Sister Otilda Thomas from the Spanish Town Assembly. Mm-hmm. She got the same message for me: buy a machine and sew and sell. And with all that I learned at the different factories, I decided that I was going to start something. And I registered a business name, and I started to go out into the schools because I know how to do PE gears and, any type of sports gear for that spot. And so I said, all right, then I'm going to go into some of the schools and, try to get the business from them.
Promote
And
and
of
market.
course, the Lord had some waiting on me. Yes. And I have a couple schools that I do PE gears for, and I do lab coats. My husband brought me my first business for lab coat from his company. He's always supporting me, always looking how he can, help me with my business. And he brought me my first lab coat order from his company.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Lord has been, blessing me, and he has given me this talent, and I am working with it now. I am working with what he has given me. So I have my business, Swerve 360 Designs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Instagram.
Yes.
And, God has been blessing me, and I use the talent that the Lord has given me. The scripture spoke of the one talent, the two talent, the talents.
And you
Some people did
around.
the one talent man didn't work upon the talent that the Lord gave him.
Nope.
I am working on the talent that he gave me. I can do other things with it, but I'm not going to put aside the talent that the Lord has given me anymore. I'm going to work with what the Lord wants me to do.
Yes.
So I am fully operational. Praise the Lord. I do lab coats, chef jackets, PE gears, scrubs for nurses and doctors. I do various, I am not limited to any one thing. Whatever the customer wants, I am able to make a pattern and fulfill the order that is given. So I bless the God of heaven for bringing me through a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
Bringing me to where I am right now.
Yes. And sometimes when we get a victory, if the process that led to it was not an overwhelming and just emotionally derailing one, sometimes we don't learn to appreciate the victory that we have. And so this was such a powerful testimony, such a powerful story of how the Lord just brought you out of that situation to the point where you are now the owner of your own business, and he's blessing you, you're out there, you're making money, doing things for yourself. And so I give God thanks, because I can imagine how psychologically that must have affected you, how your self-esteem must have gone down somewhat because of what was happening. But God, he is such a good God, and he shows us so many times of his power and just his amazingness and his awesomeness. And I'm so glad that you were here tonight to share this story with us, that God can truly turn your situation around. And so before we go, I always share a little poem or something inspirational to just close out my session. And I thought this one was so fitting for you, because you went through something that altered your body and might not have thought that you were beautiful. But this poem by Morgan Harper Nichols, it says, "You are still beautiful." It says, if they looked right past you to look at someone else, if what someone else has makes you want to change yourself, when you don't care about looks, or when it's all you think about, when you're confident all day long and you spend the night in doubt, you were made by the Maker. He creates without mistake, and no one can take value from what the Maker makes. And so I believe that that was fitting for you, because you are still beautiful regardless. And God has brought you out for a purpose. And I'm so thankful that you were here to share this story with us. And so just take 30 seconds to say something to somebody out there who might be going through a similar situation, and they are just at a crossroad and not sure how to proceed, what would you say to that person?
Thank you for this opportunity. I would encourage, first of all, it's very important to put God first. Pray. Sometimes we think that the Lord is not listening, but God is always listening. So you pray. And it's very important also to have someone to talk to. It's not good to hold things to ourselves. It's very damaging. It can be very damaging to us mentally. So have a one person who you can talk to God, and never give up on your dreams. Whatever goal you have, take it one step at a time. You know, sometimes you may not be able to do the big degree at once, but you can do a little course here, a little course there, start with the diploma, but you never give up and keep fighting with all your might. Whatever God have in store for you, it will come forth. It will come forth. So you hold on to the little hope that you have and keep pressing, because you know there's always a light ahead of the tunnel.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us again for another episode of No Longer Silent. Brave, we are women of God, and when we trust in the Lord, there is nothing that can conquer us. God bless you.
Amen.